believe in the gun. And our players don't use it most days. They use it every day.
In my 20 years as head coach, I've used the gun every single year. Well, my dream as a coach that everybody would grow up with the gun, because getting all those reps would make my job a lot easier.
Hello, everyone. This is the NABC Championship Webinar Series. Tom McDonald. I'm on the board of directors, a 2-year college coach rep. We have Troy Hilton from the NABC on. Troy, thanks for being on again and all your hard work. We have some special thanks. Jim Haney, Reggie Mitten, Troy Hilton, like I said, Eric Weberg, and then the gun for presenting and helping getting this thing off the ground. Sideline Interactive, and there will be an email coming out, and then we'll post it on here where you sign up to get that get on the list to be maybe have a chance at winning that 8-foot LED board for your sideline. Free shipping, $11,000 value. Craig Reed for all of his help on these KBA coaches that are quarantined at home. Clipboards, marker boards, magnetic boards, they're the best. He's the best. He's been involved with these clinics for a long, long time. Before I go on to the next, this all started when we met with Mike Bray and Jim Haney and Troy Hilton, kind of getting these clinics. Our fall clinics were really good. And then we had scheduled Chicago, Myrtle Beach, Springfield, Nashville, and Las Vegas. And the number of registrations was absolutely off the charts. And then all this started, the pandemic, COVID-19, and put us all in this position we're in now. So Championship Productions has put together 5 clinics that you could get. I think it's like $125, but if you go online to championshipproductions.com, you can see the webinars. Actually, they're called virtual clinics. They're unbelievable. It's the same coaches on the same topic from other clinics earlier, or the same coach on a different topic, or a different coach on the same topic. There's like 70 presentations that you get a chance to watch. Unbelievable. And then there's also, I think, a coupon that we'll put on for 25% off any videos you want to get. We're really lucky to have the coaches that we have. Our next guest, that I'll go through in a second, is Ryan Saunders. We were fortunate enough at Championship Productions to get to know Coach. Really, I met his dad the first time in Moody Bible College in 2006. He was speaking at the Cotton Fitzsimmons Memorial Basketball Clinic. It was a who's who of presenters. Van Gundy, Hubie Brown, Coach Saunders, Greg Popovich, Mike Fratello. I mean, it was probably the best clinic I've ever been at in person. It was unbelievable. But I just thought I'd give you some rundown of, the history of Ryan and his dad. First of all, his dad was an assistant at Minnesota, Big Ten champions when he was there, assistant at Tulsa. The thing I really thought it was unbelievable is his journey. Rapid City in 1988, La Crosse, 1989, Sioux Falls. I was a high school coach in West Lyon, Iowa, and he was at the Skyforce. I remember going to a game in Sioux Falls, watching him play. He won 253 games in the CBA in 7 years. Got to the Timberwolves, first playoff berth, 1996, 97. Franchise record 50 wins. 2003 and 4 won the first divisional title, advanced to the Western Conference Finals. Then he went to the Pistons from 05 to 08. Franchise record 64 wins. Coached 2006 All-Star Game. Went to the Wizards 09 to 12. Ryan was the assistant coach then. Then went back to the Minnesota Timberwolves 14-15. Ryan was his assistant then. He won 427 games in 10 seasons as a head coach. I'll tell you what I noticed about him was just he was a basketball person. Great, helpful. Anything we needed, he did. And So I want to, first of all, I want to go on to Ryan because he's been so good. Coach Saunders has been so good to me and Championship Productions and really the NABC for doing this. He's the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Coach's birthday's coming up. I won't say how old he is. His birthday's coming up on the 28th. Former assistant coach of the Timberwolves and Washington Wizards, the son of Flip Saunders. So, Coach, my first is just thanks for doing this. And all the people that are on here are going to learn a ton of stuff, ton of information, tidbits, smorgasbord of information. So thanks for being on, and really appreciate it. That was very nice of you. I think you got to turn on.
Yeah, I got you here. I'm learning all these Zoom meetings we got going now.
I get caught in that stupid button for on-off voice. So I hope you heard what I said. None of it was a lie, and I appreciate it.
I got you. No, I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys having me on here. I've always, had a lot of respect for Championship Productions and just what you guys put forth, the effort and just the content you put forward for coaches like myself. And it's definitely helped me in my development. And, these webinars have been really fun to take a look at. And, there's so many great coaches, around the world. And, you're able to see some of these coaches that, maybe you don't necessarily know much about where they are coaching at, but you see the brilliance, the brilliance that you guys really have in your following. So, I'm really honored to be a part of this. And then I also, I do want to make sure to acknowledge, just being in a time like this, just in terms of, hearts going out to people who are affected, immediately, and then people who obviously are affected in other ways and impacted. That's something that you guys will hear a little bit about here when I talk about Minnesota and our culture. But care factor is big, and that's a genuine care factor as you're building a culture is something that's really important. So just want to make sure express those condolences and heartfelt recoveries to people and thoughts. I will say, I told myself that if I ever had a chance to get in front of a group of coaches and obviously a group of knowledgeable coaches, I was going to make sure to tell this story, and I've told it a few times. So if you've heard it before, forgive me. But about 5-6 years ago, I was in Washington D.C. I was coaching for the Wizards. Randy Whitman was the coach at the time, and I was able to. I went to attend. I was attending all the seminars and all the coaches clinics at Las Vegas Summer League, and one of the clinics was a assistant coach who was extremely offensively creative. I mean, he was unbelievable, and he had just gotten a head coaching job. And so myself being another head coach who was trying to work his way into into a place where you could be looked at in that way eventually, I was so excited to go watch him teach and see what he was going to put forth offensively and creativity wise. And so I went there, and with a lot of expectations, and also the scout in me, I'm thinking, hey, I'll be able to gather some information on what they're going to be running next year. And he was slotted for an hour and a half, and in that hour and a half, about 20 minutes went by, and he taught all floppy for 20 minutes. And then about 45 minutes went by. He taught all floppy for 45 minutes. And then it got to be about an hour and 25 minutes, and we were still on floppy. And I realized, I was like, he's not going to teach anything that he runs or anything that he believes in, just at the sheer fact of he doesn't want to give away some sort of competitive advantage. And I told myself that, because I was a little surprised, I guess a little disappointed, and a little pissed off, because I wanted to learn a little more that day. But I told myself, if I ever got a chance to get in front of a group, I'd try to share as much as I could. So I'm honored to be in front of all you, and I hope somebody learns something. If you don't, hopefully there's some good stories to tell.
Coach, my first question is this. You've been very fortunate, and I know you know that, and you're very appreciative of the people you've been around. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk about your journey first?
Yeah.
You were a player at Minnesota, mm-hmm. University of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Your dad's the head coach
Yeah.
at the Timberwolves. Can you just talk about your journey and the people that have been in your background and have kind of paved the way, helped you? I mean, I hate to say it, but not everybody's first job is the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. But everybody gets their first job, so how can they be ready for it?
Yeah, no, and that was something I was planning on talking about today. And you know, it's I'm the first one to admit that and say that, you know, a lot of times you're afforded opportunities, and you know, you need to take advantage of those opportunities when they get put in front of you. And with that, you know, I never wanted to be somebody that worked to get ready. I wanted to try to stay ready. And so whenever that opportunity came, that was big for me. You know, coming up, having a father who was a head coach in the NBA was something that I never looked at as a you know, positive or as a negative. I just looked at it for what it was. And you know, and that being, you know, you can learn a lot, but also there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that too. There's a lot of things that, you know, things that you're going to have to endure in that time, but also some opportunities that you may get to be around some other, you know, coaches, be around other players that you can develop philosophy. You know, I'll say that I've had an opportunity to be around a number of players that, you know, now would be going in the Hall of Fame, that have helped me develop a basketball philosophy at a younger age. You know, and that's a big part of what I believe in, what I do. And what we do in Minnesota is, you know, trying to connect with the player and connect with the person before you connect with the athlete. And, you know, I learned that, you know, from just being in locker rooms and hearing, you know, some of the conversations that maybe I wasn't supposed to hear at times. But, you know, I will say, you know, I've had a lot of great people around me. I have an unbelievable staff in Minnesota that, you know, do a lot of things to make my life easier. And, you know, we feel good about where we're going, what we're building. You know, and a lot of that comes from, you know, having a strong culture and building a strong culture, which I plan on talking about. But, you know, culture is a word that's used a lot, and you know, it can't be taken lightly.
My next question is this: going from an assistant coach, which I've gone to a couple of your games and watched how you were as an assistant. So going that 1 foot over, and then being on the same team. So players, management, all that stuff. How was it? I would say transition into that next seat. How was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was different. You know, obviously, when you take over mid-season, you know, you don't have a lot of time to really. You're hitting the ground running right away. So you know, you don't have a lot of time to you know, gather everything that you want to do, or that you know, all your philosophies that you want to put in. You know, for the most part, you're really just trying to maintain and you know, keep the ship afloat, and then try to add small little wrinkles or small pieces of your philosophy that you want to that you feel is best for your team moving forward. And, you know, I have had the privilege of working for so many detailed coaches. You know, my father, Randy Whitman, Tom Thibodeau. Those guys all taught me, Tubby Smith, those guys all taught me a number of things that really helped me be ready for that job. And, you know, I'm a clear example of, you know, you never know when that opportunity is going to come. So you got to be ready.
Troy, you got anything for Coach before we turn him loose? Because I know he's got a lot of stuff.
No, I'm not nothing specific. I just want to thank you for being on. Personally, I'm interested. I've been at the NBC for a long time. I've worked with a lot of coaches and know a lot of coaches, but they're all collegiate. Because our schedules are parallel. I just very rarely get to speak with NBA guys. So I'm just interested to hear what kind of clinic you run versus some of the college ones we've seen. So thanks again for participating.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Coach, I'll monitor the question answers.
Perfect.
And once in a while, I'll say, Coach, you got time to answer a couple questions?
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to you. Topic-wise, you're going to talk about culture and your system of offensive system and package.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll give as much information as I can.
Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you in a little bit.
You got it. All right. So like I said, first off, I appreciate everybody being on here. You know, it's it's something, an honor I don't take lightly. Being able to be in front of a number of coaches who want to get better. That's something that we're all doing right now. We're all in such a unique time, and it's a time that we can use to try to better ourselves, and ultimately, better the people around us, but also better our team around us, our team that we have. That's we've talked a lot during this hiatus with our players on being better at the end of this, and there's tough days ahead, but if we can continue to try to work to, one, not only keep healthy, but also work to better ourselves and be better for the people around us, be better for our team, then we can find something, maybe a silver lining at the end of all of this. I'm going to start out by talking, just a little bit about my philosophy. If there's one thing that story kind of should tell people, is that it's the moments, the experiences, failures, those all develop your philosophy. So I think it's very hard for somebody to sit down right away and just, with no experience, no past failures, no past successes, sit down right away and just say, hey, this is my philosophy. I've been watching this. This is everything I'm going to do. I'm going to be just like this group. The first thing I'd say is before you can develop a culture, you need to develop a philosophy. So you need to ask yourself questions. What type of working environment do you want to create? What are your key points of emphasis offensively? What are your key points of emphasis defensively? And then what matters to you as a person? That's really important. And I think you'll see a common theme, when I talk about some of these things. And hey, if you guys got questions, send them in to Tom. I'm always willing to answer as many as I'm capable of answering at this moment. But you'll find that there's a human element to a lot of what I will talk about, because I think that's really important. And I think that, not only at the collegiate level, whatever level you're at, the professional level as well, you want to make sure, I said before, you want to coach the person before you coach the athlete. You want to gain their trust, and the trust has to be genuine. And that's something that goes into culture, but I'll touch on that in a little bit here. You want to make your philosophy your own. So when you make your philosophy your own, you ask your those questions. You can't go out and say, hey, I'm going to be just doing this, and this, just because, and not have any type of reason to it. Find a reason. Why is your philosophy going to develop into a culture, and why is that culture going to be one that's going to be successful, or why do you feel it's going to be successful? And then I'd say the third thing, be adaptable. Okay, so be adaptable in what you do. All right. So what that means is being able to adapt to what you do as a coach, what you do as a leader, but then also be able to adapt to the times. The game is ever changing. All right, we're all working to try to stay ahead of the curve in a lot of ways, especially at the professional level. So being adaptable is really important. And then lastly, I'd say stay true to who you are as a coach and who you are as a person. Hey, at the end of the day, players can always see through that. Whatever it is, if you're a yeller, be a yeller. All right. If you're somebody who I had the privilege of having Tony Dungy spoke to our team the other day, and over a Zoom session, and he was talking about how he never really raised his voice. And I asked him how that kind of worked for him, and he said, it was kind of an acquired taste. But over time, the players really ended up not only respecting it, but also appreciating it in a way that, he told the story how he had players that would call back to other players and say, hey, don't screw this up. You have something good going for yourself. I will talk about culture in a sec, but, one thing I'll say is that I think when we talk about simplifying, it's really important to keep things in bolded form, or keep things. I like to work in fours. Okay, and so what I mean by that is, I think it's a good visual for a group and for players especially, because ultimately at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is put the players in the best position possible to succeed. That's our primary goal. That's our only goal. And then obviously away from the court, there are other things that we'd like them to be better as men. We'd like them to be better in their spiritual life. a number of things, which I'm sure you all have heard or you all talk about in your programs as well. But, I like to keep things in fours. So a lot of my lists are in fours. And, you hear that you can visualize a chair having 4 legs. One of those legs gets chopped down, gets kicked out. All right. That chair is not going to be sturdy. That chair is not going to stand upright. You're in a car. You get a flat tire. One of those wheels goes flat. All right. You're not going to be able to continue to move forward. So I'd encourage everybody here to really simplify. I think that helps when it comes to building a philosophy and then building out a culture as well. When I talk about making your philosophy your own, not emulating someone else's philosophy, I think the very easy thing and the very, I guess thing that would be very common to see is look at Golden State, okay, as an NBA team who has had tremendous success, or look at New England, for example, as an NFL team that have had tremendous success, and say, hey, we are just going to go and do exactly what they do. And, I'd say take things from those teams, take things from those organizations, those programs, those great programs, but make it your own. Make it your own because, like I said, at the end of the day, players will be able to see through that. And then when we talk about as coaches, okay, I think one thing that if I can stress to a group of coaches at whatever level you're at, be the best at whatever level you're at, and work to be the best at whatever level you're at. I've always wanted to tell, whenever I have an opportunity to tell this story here, I do, because it not only tells a story of, the type of man, the type of leader that this gentleman is, but also the message, his ultimate message is really, really good. When I took over last January, I got in touch through a mutual friend, Dabo Sweeney from Clemson football, reached out, and he had been interim. So, I think he definitely sees a value in having somebody reach out and having somebody help in those types of situations. He reached out. We were in LA on a road trip, and he called, and by the time it ended up being about an hour and a half of conversation. I didn't know he was necessarily calling at that time. I knew we were going to get in touch at some point through this mutual friend, but I didn't know that he was going to be calling at that time. And as the time kind of went on, I looked at the clock and I saw we had been on for about an hour. And I told him, I was like, Coach, you can head out, because then I realized he had the national championship in the next 2 weeks. And my point to that story is that it just tells you the type of person that he is. So one, the message from that is that always be willing to share, always be willing to give information, but also take information too. Because the biggest thing that I took from him in that moment was he told me, he said, you have to bloom where you're planted. Always bloom where you're planted. And that stuck with me, and that stuck with me in so many ways, because there's a lot of situations as coaches and head coaches especially that you can't control. But whatever that situation is, you gotta just bloom where you're planted. And then also, hey, if you're wanting to eventually be a head coach, okay, which is ultimately what a lot of people's goals are. Okay, you want to be a head coach, do it in the right way. I think that's really important. Stay true to who you are in your character, and stay true to the job that you were hired to do, and then everything else takes care of itself. So as I kind of move forward to culture, I have a number of clips and sets I kind of want to get to throughout this. But when I talk about culture, I think it's culture is a word that's used a lot in sport, and it can't be used just when things are going well. So when things are going well, everybody talks about, hey, this culture, it's hey, it's great, we're having fun. It's very easy to have a great culture when you're always winning. It's when the tough times happen. And hey, this year we had some tough times. We had a number of tough times, but I felt that the culture that our coaches and our group established last summer into preseason, into the regular season, that really allowed those tougher times to make our group not splinter. And negative cultures or questionable cultures, they don't try to have a negative environment. but everyone has a different way of doing things. So, just because a culture may be one that, hey, it's all joy, maybe that doesn't work for you. Okay. If a culture is one that's all, practice till the time limit, all right, in that day, whatever it is now, the week limit, and then, no real relationships. Hey, if that's your culture, that's your culture. Players will be able to see through if you have any culture that is not your own. The thing that I've seen, come into play with negative cultures, selfishness, doubt, and then a lack of communication. Where there's a lack of communication, that void will be filled with negativity. And I've always felt that, if there's a lack of communication, whether it be between players, whether it be between the coaches or coach and the player, that lack of communication, that void will be filled with negativity. And then when it comes to having a great culture, you need to live it in all that you do. Coach players from the inside out, not from the outside in. And what I mean by that, I said it before, you'll hear me say it again, I'm sure, but coach the person before you coach the athlete. Okay. Don't let the outside, the fact that a player, if a team loses, don't let that change your care factor. And that's something that we really try to stress in Minnesota. Hey, just because you lose a game or just because somebody, is 2 for 15 that game, that doesn't mean we're not going to be, one, there for him and but two, also holding him accountable. Okay. So don't coach from the outside in, and then it's actions over words. That's something we talk a lot about in Minnesota. Actions over words. We don't just want to hear people say the right thing. We want guys to do the right thing. When I talk about, it starts at the top, I feel fortunate that I have a president in Gerson Rosas and ownership who shares the same vision. And when I say same vision, they share the same vision that, we want to do things our way and not necessarily, we'll take ideas from other groups, but we want to do things in a way that, maybe might not be conventional. What I mean by that is, Tom, you alluded to it, I got my 34th birthday next week, but, it's being young, I don't look at that as a negative. Okay. So being young for me, I need to use that as a positive. So I like to think that energy and enthusiasm, anything you do, you should be doing it with energy and enthusiasm. So I'm a little all over the place, in practice. We like to structure our practices almost in a football type environment. So we do that where we have a number of stations. We'll come together. We'll break down. Then I'm going to show you guys as I go through some of these clips. But we'll break down. But then we'll put it back together. So we like to coach whole, part, whole. Okay, whole, part, whole is big for us. When we're doing that, we want energy to everything we do. Now we have an 82 game season. It's tough to have energy every day. I get that, but we still say, hey, we want to move from drill to drill quickly. Everybody's time is extremely important. So with that, we want to make sure that we maximize and we are efficient in all that we do. As coaches, we do a lot of meeting, and we meet on the court too. So we meet and we go through practice. We got a number of coaches who have just gotten done playing, or coaches or video guys that have just gotten done playing. So in a lot of cases, and that was something that was important for me, having guys that can really relate to players as well. But when we have a lot of situations in our drill work where we have the coaches actually get out there and demonstrate the drill. When we're doing install, we have 5 coaches get out there and go through the install. That's something that we feel has helped speed up some of the learning process. Especially we had at one point in the season, at the trade deadline, we had 10 new players. So we needed to speed up accelerate our install process, because at that time the games were coming quickly. You have 4 games in 5 nights. You got games every other day. So we had to accelerate that learning process. As a team and an organization, we don't ever want a quiet gym. We talk about that all the time. So we play music throughout our practices. And I'm sure some of you guys are, I know you guys aren't in close quarters, but, if you were, some guys might roll their eyes at that. Hey, it works. I like it. Okay. And I think that's what's best for our group. That's what our organization, we think is what's best for our group. We want to play music to simulate game-like environments. Okay. Keeping a tempo to everything, keeping a pace to everything. There are some days we'll bring a live DJ in. And we do that, and one of the reasons to do that is to be a different group here in Minnesota. We're the youngest team in the league. We want to try to gather guys' attention in different ways, and we want to make sure that I'll talk about exactly what our core covenants are, but we want to make sure that we are a group that is focused on the players too. As coaches, if you want to create a strong culture, you know yourself and live it. Okay, so all positive cultures start from the top. It moves to your staff. Okay, I know I'm sure a lot of places have talked about culture. Ultimately, comes from leaders within the team, comes from the players. Hey, culture comes from your staff. You know, that I feel very strongly about that, and that ultimately starts at the top. And we're fortunate to have a number of very positive people at the top with us. You know, when us in Minnesota, we want to have a place of work where everyone knows what's expected of them. Okay, so everybody knows what's expected of them, and as individuals, and then they know what the goals of the organization are. Okay, that's really important for us. We want to be a group that, you know, is transparent. I think that's extremely important, that players see transparency, but players see humility and a genuineness to everything that you do, and that'll help push the culture forward. But ultimately, you need drivers. You need drivers on your team to push that culture forward, but you need drivers on your staff to really solidify that culture. Couple things that we do that are unique, I'd like to share with the group is myself and our president, we have exit interviews in the preseason. So before the season starts, we have exit interviews. And what I mean by that is we ask the same questions that we'll ask in exit interviews. And we ask those where, you know, maybe these guys have only been around for a week, or you know, maybe these guys have only been around for you know, a month because they were doing OTAs, the preseason workouts. We ask these exit interview questions because we want to hear what these players feel, you know, how they feel about, you know, not just the things that are happening on the court, what they can improve upon, but also the things that away from the court too. We want to be able to have that communication. We have exit interviews at All-Star break, and then obviously exit interviews at the end of the season. You know, I mentioned him a little bit, but you know, it's I know everybody has a different structure probably they're working with. You know, for myself, alignment with our president and ownership is key. And, you know, I feel very fortunate to have that alignment with the same type of thought process and the same type of goal and vision. You know, so I would tell coaches, as long as we have a group of coaches here, I would say, you know, be about what you believe in as a coach, but also work with the decision makers and work with everyone for a shared goal. You know, if there's voids, like I said, if there's voids in communication, that's where negativity creeps in. If there's voids in communication or there's people not speaking, that's where cultures kind of start dissipating and everybody kind of goes their separate ways. And then it also makes the days in the job a lot more enjoyable. All right, so that's really important, I think, in terms of culture driving forward. Before I get into some of the basketball actions, I'll touch briefly on just some of our core covenants within our culture as a team. You know, Minnesota, if you come, we're in the early stages of developing our culture. Last year was my first year. All right, you know, we're developing something we feel we can have sustainable success in. And, you know, our goal is to treat players, and when I say sustainable success, you know, that means that, you know, you're not fast tracking the process. You can't skip steps. You know, I'm sure a lot of coaches talk about winning the day. We talk about that a lot. You know, we talk about winning the drill, winning the play, winning the moment, things like that, in everything that we do. We want to cultivate a facility of competition. So there's a lot of competition that throughout our practices, throughout what we do, you know, whether it be, you know, just in our film sessions as well. Okay, hey, we'll have trivia session, and that gets competitive for our group. These guys know they're going to be competing every time they come through the doors with us. That is one of the benefits we have to having a very young group. Is you know, these guys usually do have great energy as they come into practice. You know, like I said, we're in the early stages of developing our environment, developing our culture. You know, our goal is to treat players and families better than they've been treated, just in general. And that doesn't mean you let players get away with things. Accountability is really important for culture, but, you know, accountability, I hear coaches talk a lot and we can agree to disagree, but, you know, we always talk about, you know, and I've talked about it too, you know, accountability from players. We need that. We need accountability from players. It is important for an ultimate, you know, a championship caliber team, but sometimes you may be in a season where you don't have those types of guys. And if you're a group that's not controlling your own roster, or you're not recruiting your own roster. Now, if you're recruiting your own roster, you know, hey, you probably shouldn't be complaining about not having guys that you know, won't hold other players accountable, and you know, myself included. You know, if we're picking players, you know, you got to make sure you know what you're getting into with these guys. If that's something you feel you need with your team, you need with your group, hey, find a way to get those guys who will do that. But, you know, peers holding each other accountable, it's not for everyone. And I found that, and that's where we got to step up as coaches. Very important. That's where staff members have to step up as well. Another thing I'll touch on with staff, you know, we talk in Minnesota, we have a rule: we can't stand within arm's length away from each other during practice. I think that's a common staff thing, that a lot of times we all just huddle up on the sideline when it's not our drill to run, or I remember doing it as an assistant when it's not our drill to run, but hey, we should be coaching every possession, coaching every play, and we want to coach on the fly. We always have our players funnel out through, when we're going through a drill, we have them funnel out through the outside, and with that, they're being seen by about 3-4 coaches who would all be preaching the same message, because we went over those drills earlier. We walked through those drills. We walked over the points of emphasis with things, but you know, that's how we'll correct. So Minnesota, if you come and you visit us for one day, you would probably see an innovative group, player-centric, family-oriented, and championship-driven. And notice we said championship-driven. We're not saying we are going to win the championship this year. We're saying we're driven to win a championship. And a lot goes into that. That's part of the not skipping steps. And our players could go through. They would say, you know, the same type of maybe in different order, but they could give you what our culture really is in Minnesota. We have 3 rules. I'm not big on rules. You know, I think rules sometimes can handcuff you. You know, so if you have a rule, you know, you have a big long rule book, you have a rule, and let's say, you know, we all want to treat players. I say no two players will be treated exactly the same, but they'll all be treated fairly. And so that means that, you know, you're not always going to treat everybody exactly the same. Okay. And that might mean, you know, how you coach somebody. Maybe somebody needs a little love. Maybe somebody needs to have their voice raised, your voice raised at them a little bit. Okay. That's important. But we say, you know, we have 3 rules: be on time, be a good family member, and then you can't have 2 bad days in a row. And so these 3 rules, pretty much everything that you would put in a rule book really fall into these rules. You know, so it does allow you a little bit of room if you do need to discipline somebody, but you may be in a situation where you have your 35 point per game scorer, and your you know, 2 days prior to that, your player who maybe has only played in 2 games, you know, he hasn't scored yet. All right, he was late for the bus, or he missed practice. You ended up suspending him for a game. He didn't dress. 2 days later, your 35 point per game scorer, he ends up, you know, being late for the bus or practice, something like that, and then you have to hold him to the same standard essentially, if you have it in the rule book. So this is where it's kind of helped me form easier decision making and discipline situations where you can hold guys accountable, but it's also not going to handcuff you as well. Organizational standards, you know, having clear standards as you're moving forward, you know, and building not just in days, but you're building months, you're building years. That's important. Our organizational standards, once again, in 4s, we want to live with maximum effort. Okay. And this is for everybody. This isn't just the players. This is coaches. This is everybody. Live with maximum effort. All right. We want to set goals and take steps to reach those goals. All right. We talk about that a lot. Every day we have a ultimate goal. We want to be championship driven, but we need to set little goals to reach those big goals. Write your name on the day. We tell our players that every day. You know, at the end of the day, you answer yourself. Can you write your name on that day? All right, that's important. And then live your why. This year at our opening training camp meeting, I had everybody talk about their why, give their why on why they play basketball, and everyone is different. And the reason for that was so we had them it documented when times got tough for guys, because times do get tough. Hey, we just had a player who's going through a tragic situation. Sometimes you need to pull the why out to try to help somebody through something. And, hey, it happens a lot. And I think you guys would see if you end up doing that, you'll see how it can really bring a player back to, okay, hey, this is important. This is important for me. I need to move forward doing this. Lastly, I'll ultimately say, hey, be creative, challenge your assistants to come up with new ways to improve your culture. All right. So ultimately it has to be your vision, but if your assistants know your culture, hey, challenge them. All right. Challenge them on what they can do to improve that culture. We talk about non-negotiables. These are non-negotiables for our practice every day: effort, aggression, enthusiasm, commitment. Okay. All of those right there. Obviously you want to have maximum effort. We want to be a team where we put pressure on you offensively. Okay. Especially playing fast, playing with pace, where we put pressure on you defensively too. Okay. And we're a work in progress. We understand that, but these are things that we are striving for. Enthusiasm always has to be high, and then our commitment to each other and then our commitment to the game is important as well. As we continue to talk a little more, the biggest things that I would say as a head coach in developing a strong culture and continuing to develop a strong culture, which I feel we have in Minnesota. And I'm not looking at the record. I'm looking at, okay, can we look at what we set out to do? And this goes back to coaching players from the inside out as opposed to the outside in. Are we doing what we set out to do? And can you answer those questions with a check mark or with a yes? And if you can, then your culture is starting to come. You win with people and you lose with people. Okay, that's something to keep in mind, because if you can have the greatest strategy, you can have the greatest talent, but if you don't have the people, okay, and the character within your group to come together, it's going to be very tough to win at a high level. And then I'll say lastly, always make sure you have the right folks with you. That's something as coaches, and that goes back to blooming where you're planted. Bloom where you're planted. Make sure you have the right people with you moving forward. That doesn't mean just staff. It doesn't mean just the secretary. That means everybody. Trainers. That means players. That means hey, your janitor, bring him in. Everybody is part of this culture, and everybody needs to have enthusiasm. Tom, you got any questions on the culture aspect of things?
Yes, I do. First one, they asked if they could look at slide 4 and 5 again. Just can you show culture slide starts at 4?
Yep. Starts at 4.
And then the other one, while you're doing that, can you show the second pledge culture bullets again, please?
This one here?
Think so. Aside from energy, enthusiasm, what are some of the other benefits you have found being a young coach?
I found relatability. It's, once again, you'll see a common theme for me is being able to relate and trying to do my best to communicate and do my best to, with players, we have to explain the why. Okay, so being able to explain the why is really important. And being able to do that in quick hits, coaching in buzz phrases, I think that helps. But ultimately, being able to, if you don't have trust of players, it's going to be very hard for you to implement any type of schemes, any type of sets, any type of standards that you really want.
How often do you meet with your players one-on-one?
I have an open door policy, so I'm always available. But meeting with players, I will try to meet with them when we are able to actually meet in person. I'll try to meet with them usually about once every 2-3 weeks. but they usually happen more organically and naturally. It's probably going to be with your players who are playing more, but I'd say don't sacrifice, your relationships with the guys towards the end of the bench either. Because, hey, sometimes they're the ones, they need to be soldiers for your cause. So sometimes if you're able to keep them fresh and touch them a little bit, they're able to affect the guys who may be playing more of the minutes.
Coach, what was the first thing you did as a head coach that when you took over the Timberwolves?
I went through all my notes I've written for 10 years. And I learned pretty quickly that all the notes that you have written down, you're not going to be able to implement everything that you said you were going to implement as a head coach. And it's just the way it is. But I tried to, simplify once again, get down to exactly what I thought was going to help this group. Because nobody wants to see anybody lose their job. So but you understand that you have to move forward and do your best with, bloom where you're planted. So after I was able to kind of get through my notes and write some things down, I met with all the players individually in my hotel room in Oklahoma City. It
says, what does write your name mean?
Yeah, if you can sign your name on the day. Okay, so we'll say that to guys. If you have your day, you have your day going from when you woke up to when you're going to bed. Are you able to put your name on that day, or would you rather have somebody else's name on that day? Bottom line, did you do what you set out to do? Did you affect what you set out to affect?
What is the best way to manage your practice time?
Yeah, that's a great question. My staff is my staff laughs sometimes because we have a great practice planning software program that we go through, and we plan practice out, and hey, we'll get to the third drill and, I'll audible something. And I think part of that is based off feel and not being so set in your regiment to what you do. I have somebody, I talked about, we kind of have a football model. I have somebody who's a quality control coach. He's around me a lot. So for that reason, he will then go through and he lets me know, hey, we're 20 minutes behind schedule, or we're such and such, and then we'll quick cut something. But I really do, if I have a set time that I want to be done, I stay within that time, because I do believe in taking care of players' bodies during a long season.
Do you use a whistle in practice?
I do, but I yell a lot too. I yell over the music, not necessarily at the players, all the time.
What kind of software program do you use?
In terms of practice?
Yeah.
We actually have an in-house analytics crew that they do, and I'm going to get into some of our analytics stuff in a second here, but they do some unbelievable work to basically get us kind of what we need. And, analytics is a big part of what we do in Minnesota.
Here's your last one before I let you just go back to work. How do you determine your coach's roles?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. You determine, when I was hiring last summer, and, I hired a whole new staff last summer, and, so that's a lot of hires, and that's a lot of interviews. I went through, made job descriptions. I tried to figure out what I wanted in each, whether it be the associate head or the lead assistant, the second assistant, the third assistant, the director of player development, the person who was going to be our game plan coordinator, what I wanted in those coaches. And I tried to find those guys that were out there on the market or out there that we were able to speak to. I feel very confident in our staff and very happy with our staff. But, then once you get that group in with you, I kind of waited till, we went through summer, we worked on projects together. We had a number of meetings, number of discussions. As we got to the regular season, that's when I started kind of shifting around some roles, whether it be in-game roles, whether it be roles in terms of preparation, development. That's where I kind of shifted some things to, something, where it might be in somebody else's strong category and somebody else's not so strong category. You good to go, Tom?
Coach, go to work. I'll get back to you in a little bit with more questions, okay?
All right, here we go.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it. So when we're talking about NBA, everybody steals from everybody. That's the first thing I'll say. A lot of my offense is stolen from other coaches. I'm sure a lot of other coaches would say that too. The thing I would say is, try to give credit where credit's due. I believe in that. So if I steal something from you, I'll probably try to find a way to give you a little bit of credit, either within our staff or within the play call, whatever it may be. But everybody's stealing from everybody. I'm going to go through our 5 series today, our 5-out offense, and then kind of talk to you all on how we developed this offense and why we feel this is going to be this is a system that's best suited for our group. First thing I'll say, when we talk about offensive package maturation, when you're trying to figure out what type of offense to run, you need to establish your points of emphasis. Okay, so establish how you want to play. For us, we want to play fast. Okay, we want to do nearly everything with pace. So with that, we do nearly everything with pace. We want to find creative ways how to play faster. I'll show you a couple things, but then also, we want to emphasize what we value analytically too. So that means shot selection for us. Okay, so we value shot selection and shot distribution. What that means: threes, foul shots, and layups. That's what we're striving to get. And you'll actually see right here. This is a visual of our court, our practice facility, and these markers are actually on every single court in our practice facility. So what they do is the green, based on the darkness, the shade of the green shows how much we value that shot. If it's in red, and based on the hue and the lighter darkness, that's how we don't value that shot. You see right here, layups, dunks, those are the highest points per possession shot. Okay, and we take fouls and offensive rebounds into that equation as well. So if a shot is taken right at the rim, there's the shot points per possession for that shot. The shot value is 1.7 points. Okay, shot taken at where you get fouled and you go to the foul line, that's 1.5 points per possession. And then you obviously see around the 3-point line, it varies between 1.3 and 1.4 around there. Those are shots that we value. All right. So with that, we establish our offensive system by looking at that. We want a high assist, low turnover rate. Very important to us. Okay. We did that well at times, didn't do that well at times. We also want to generate extra possessions. When we talk about generating extra possessions, we value offensive rebounding. Okay, and we saw that our roster shifted big time mid-season, where we had 10, 11 new players. Okay, but early in the season, we maybe didn't have the greatest offensive 3-point percentage group, so we had to become a good offensive rebounding team. And that leads me into, I got questioned a lot where, do you think that as a coach, you need to tailor your offensive system to your players, or do you need to get players that fit your offensive system? And I think that's a question for every coach that just has to answer on their own. Because for us, we want to do what was best for, a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, who's our cornerstone. He's a 7-foot center who shoots over 40% from 3. So it's important for us to build an offense where he's able to play in space. He's a great decision maker at the top of the key. We knew we were going to struggle at times, but we were committed to our system, because if we start becoming a team that was just a straight slow down team, when we ultimately feel that what's best for us down the line is to be a fast-paced team, and we aren't teaching that right now, that's going to hinder Karl's development. That's going to hinder these other guys who make it through this build. That's going to hinder their development within that system. So we want to make sure that we found players that fit this system well, and we feel good about that. Next thing I'll say, you got to get to roster inventory. Okay, see what you have on your roster. Do you have players that you're building your offense around, like I just talked about Karl? Do you have players that you're going to build around? All right, and we made that decision. We found a way to get a guy like D'Angelo Russell as well. That's allowed us to play out of more pick and rolls. That's allowed us to play at a little different pace too. The way he'll have man the basketball. how does your team pick up concepts? So what I mean by that is, are you a group that the players need to know their exact pattern, what they're getting out of this shot, or out of this set, where it's, hey, you're going to come down, run a basic horn set, or are you going to be a more read and react team? And I'll show a couple clips in a second here. But that's something that you need to take a look at. And then what's your ultimate vision? Okay, so do you want to be a set team, read and react team? Are you isolation based? Do you want to play inside out, or are you more of a drive and kick group? Okay, so that's something that's important. And then your commitment to your system. That is the single-handedly biggest key that I would say is be committed to your system, but also be willing to adapt it. All right. So if there's something that you did all the research on in the summertime that you say, hey, this is the best thing for us to do. All right. Best thing for us to do, these shot values, these types of shots, this type of offense. All right. Don't completely stray away from it just because it doesn't work for a couple games. All right. You may need to adapt, but you do that by sticking true to your core principles on things. Lastly, I'll say you have to build out your terminology. Okay. I have a terminology sheet. It's a spreadsheet. It's probably got 100 different terms on it. So what that means is, if I call out, that means the four-man's in the strong side corner. If I call double, that means it's a double away. So all these little things all these little concepts that have definitions for them, eventually players, if you're using them enough, and I always write the name, even if it's not in our playbook, I always write the name of the ATO on the board so players can see, because sometimes they'll trigger them, they'll remember it, but they'll also remember concepts too. So they know every time anything for us is thumb. Okay, so if I call double thumb, they know it's a double away right into a thumb action. I'm going to show you in a second here too. Lastly, I'll say before we watch this film, determine your family of plays too. Okay, so your families, have your, okay, if your set is a 5 set or your set is double, then you have all your terminology. It can just segue right into it. All right, so you're in 5, you go into 5 out. All right, you go into 5 high, you go into 5 thumb. So players know what type of alignment they're getting into. That's where the family comes into play. And then you can get into exactly what the action would be. Tom, you got any questions on that before I get to the film?
Yep, I got a couple here.
Yep.
Some of them may be different topics, but let's see here. What is the biggest obstacle in regards to culture when your peers you ended up coaching?
I think initially it's the accountability, finding your voice, find what works for you. And, I'd say I really haven't struggled with that. But I have had to, change the way I might do things on a daily basis at times, and be a little less available at times, because, hey, there's just not enough time in the day. As a head coach, and I'm sure we have a lot of head coaches on here. As a head coach, you're not just controlling what they're running offensively, what they're doing defensively, what the rotation is. You're controlling so many things within that program or within that organization. I said this at one point. The time I realized it wasn't all just about basketball was last year when I had to make a decision between broccoli and asparagus on the plane. And that's where I realized that it's not all just about basketball.
How do you establish yourself, or how do you earn the respect of the players? First of all, you were there before, but
yeah,
the difference.
I've never even thought about that. I've stayed true to myself.
POE stands for what?
Points of emphasis.
Got it. Have you implemented the terminology so it's consistent across the board with your staff and players? What resources do you use to help in transitioning your terminology when your new players or coaches come into your system?
Yep, great question. Yes, it's uniform throughout our whole organization, players, staff, everyone. When a lot of times teams run the same, very similar sets. For example, we had a couple players come from Denver this year. We made sure that once those players got to Minnesota, we went through the Denver film as a staff, and we saw, okay, hey, our double with Denver, that means away. Okay, so we're going to teach it to him. Hey, we call it double. It was the away you ran in Denver. So simplifying, that's better for groups.
So, do you have any special sheets or statistics things to look at in the game that for you and your assistants?
Yeah, we do most everything off an iPad, and what we do. Yep.
My question was this.
Yeah.
So at halftime, what do you look? What are the stats? What are the three categories? One category you look at and go,
Yeah.
hey, we're really playing well, or we're playing really bad.
Yeah, I'm looking. It goes back to your points of emphasis. Fast break points for us. I look at our shooting percentage. I'm just talking offensively right now. Our shooting percentage, and I look at true shooting percentage that we have our analytics guy go through. And then I also, based on how we were shooting the basketball, I'll look at our offensive rebounding percentage because that's something that we value.
All right.
I always one more thing I'll add. I always look at, this is something we get every day with our group. I always look at where our shot health is. So you see at the bottom, can you see my cursor here, Tom?
Yep.
So right here, rim. Okay, so we want to be, obviously threes, rim twos, and free throws. Those are shots that we value. And even if some of the other numbers aren't great, we can look and see that we're making progress. That was our frequency. This was earlier in the year. Our efficiency obviously wasn't very good with it too, but we were taking the right shots. We just weren't making at the time. So rim twos, we weren't taking a lot of mid-range 3-point shots. And then you look, our free throw rate was great. 3 things that we wanted, we said we did. We felt good about it.
So how do you handle the player who dribbles too much?
Take them out. Nah, it depends on how good that player is. Hey, you find ways to get them off the ball. Okay, I call it snap or come action. So if it looks like, can you see the screen back here, Tom?
Yep.
Kinda.
Yep. There's a little glare off of it, but a little bit.
A little glare.
If you take it off shared screen and it go big, then it'll be easier to see.
I gotcha. A little better?
Yep, a lot better. If you could turn your screen that's good right there.
So just basic come action, and I have done this with a guy who maybe over dribbled a little bit. Hit, okay. Hit right here. You're coming off this way. What it does, it allows him to give the ball up, get it right back. Guy goes under. It's a repick. Come right back. Ability to play 5 out as well. Okay, that's something that we're looking for. Guys who can play 5 out. Able to see that a little bit?
Yeah. I didn't have one of those when I was at Perry High School, Coach.
That's a vibe board.
That's a great. All right. Since you play 82 games, do you break the season down into any kind of segments?
Yes. We'd like to break it down in 10 game segments. And in 10 game segments, we do that by and we actually will have all full organization meetings. And that's front office. Everything we do is in tandem. Front office, we're connected. We're aligned in that sense. Front office, coaches, players, we don't have players involved in those. We'll have 10 game kind of meetings with some of the players, go over all their stats, everything that we can kind of convey to them and help them in the next 10 games.
What details are covered during your installment? I'm assuming that's putting in all your set plays.
Yeah, every detail, and I can kind of show here. I want to make sure I got enough time here, Tom. So I'll hop into some of these quick.
Okay, that's my last question for you. Is this? What are some of the obstacles, some of the challenges and obstacles you faced for a young coach or first-year head coach?
I think just the time management. Time management, knowing, I'm somebody who's very detailed. I like to have things planned out to the minute, but knowing you have to adapt and adjust, on the fly. That was something I had to learn pretty quick.
All right, I'll leave you alone. I'll ask the last ones at the end.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm talking about getting the ball out quickly. All right, this is something we practice in preseason. So whatever your points of emphasis are, whatever you value, all right, make sure you're working on those in practice. So we see right here, number 5. All right, obviously it'd be better if we could get a stop here. We didn't. Okay, we worked on taking the ball out, and what that meant was we didn't care if the guy didn't clear the basket. All we wanted to do was get the ball out to either our point guard or our two men. In this case, we had a three man who could handle the ball, get the ball into a ball handler that could flow into these interchangeable positions. Did this. First thing we're looking for, quick attack. We want to see headman. All right. Not necessarily a shot that we love early in the clock, but I will say, one of the things that I'm trying to share here again for you guys. One of the things that we had. All right, in our quick attack, nearest man takes the ball out. Okay, we want to cross half court in 2.7 seconds. All right, we timed that. That would have put us at the top of the league. Okay, if we can get the ball across at 2.7 seconds on average, we felt we were in a good position to play fast. We want 45-degree drives. Okay, I'll show you in a sec here, but we want to keep an open block where we're able to penetrate through the block, and we're able to get easy thrust to the basket where the defense has to collapse. And then lastly, we want outlets up the floor. Okay. So as I get back to it here. So when we're looking for headman, okay, I'll go back here a little bit. All right. Another situation, near man takes the ball out. We always look to flatten our defense. Right here, this is an okay shot for us. Karl Anthony Towns shooting this ball right here, even though it's early in the shot clock, is okay for us. We broke it down where it's first 8 seconds, second 8, third 8 seconds of the shot clock. Those three segments, if you shoot in the first 8 seconds, you have a 1.14 points per possession shot. Now, a lot of those will be off your defense. A lot of those will be in transition, okay? But a lot of those for us were threes. All right, we don't mind those. You'll see right here, once again, this is something we practice. All right, Karl, we work on 1 foot and just that pivot. We did that every day in practice, taking that ball out. We show our headman here. All right. We talk a lot about drive, pass, or drive, pass. Okay, so what we mean by that is you get into the paint, all right? We want it to be a situation where he was either able to make a play for himself or he was able to get one more pass. So once the ball hits the paint, usually you're only going to be able to make 2 passes out of that. That's when the defense gets into a scramble. Talk about 45-degree drives. Is there a little lag on that, Tom?
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah, I'm going to try to go right
Lonnie,
into.
you want to tell him what some other coaches have done?
We talked about, have you tried the optimized video?
Yeah. I'll go one more time here.
Okay. It's not bad sometimes with a little lag.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see the action and movement.
Yeah, I think it's lagging right here, Tom. I'll just talk through a couple things here.
Just let it play if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just talk through. So when we talk about our 5-out offense, all right, we have 4 different ways to initiate that 5-out offense. What we want is we want to get all the way to corners. We want those 2 spots filled. We want the 2 wings filled, and then our top of the key. Okay, what that's going to do, that's going to allow us early driving lanes, those 45-degree drives. That's going to allow us to have the defense collapse. We're able to kick out for those drive, pass threes. And then we can also move towards our points of emphasis as a team. I'm going to stop this here, Tom. We can move past our point to our points of emphasis as a team. All right, where we're able to go to our read and react. We're able to make plays for others, and then we're also able to go to our shot values too. Okay, we should be able to put pressure on the rim. If we're able to get all the way to the basket, we should be able to put pressure on the rim, and then also be able to make kick-out passes for open looks from three. We talked a lot this year about going from, we didn't want to be a team that shot 30 threes. All right, we didn't want to be a team that shot 35 threes. We want to be a team that shot over 40 threes. Okay, and hey, sometimes that works for groups, sometimes it doesn't. But for us, that was what we thought is going to give us the best chance to be successful as we move forward. So right here, Tom, I'll open it up to a couple questions here. All right, my sports code's not going right now, really.
My fault. What's your points per possession in the second 8 seconds, in the third 8 seconds?
Yep. Points per possession. Here, I can pull it up for you right here. So in the second, 1.13, third, 1.03. Obviously, a lot of those will be execution based towards the end of the shot clock. You're forced into tougher shots, but 1.14 for us. We want to take our chances with that.
Do you have a numbering system for your transition?
Numbering system in terms of we
like
have no assigned
court, who goes where, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, we have no assigned lanes.
Okay.
So what we do with that is we build up where bigs will handle the basketball in OTAs. Smalls will be the guys in the trail position. We have a couple guys, one being Karl Anthony Towns. He has the opportunity to go down and look for early rim runs, early post-ups. Then we're able to play inside out through our punch offense.
Do you run anything using short corner or middle of the floor above the foul line?
No, none of our spacing involves players in the short corner. None of our spacing involves players in the mid-range.
How do you teach the read and react?
Well, for us, I'm going to take this off quick, Tom. So,
hey, Coach.
Yep.
Can you slide your screen over just a little bit so we're a little bit more of just a little bit. Right there, perfect, good.
Good. So for us, we always want to fill these 5 spots, okay? And we don't care what positions, what number position, what player goes to either one of those spots. All right, so as we're getting into our read and react, we get into drive and kick basketball more times than not at the end of our initial sets. So whether it be our 5-out set, whether it be any of our half-court sets, if we get into the last segment, so those last 8 seconds of the shot clock, chances are it'll be drive and kick, or it'll be some sort of post-up where Karl Anthony was able to roll down. But what we're looking to do is, by keeping an open lane in terms of our read and react, is this guy right here, if we have an open block right here, he always has to have an outlet right here. Okay. One of the things that I had the chance to be with John Wall and Bradley Beal in Washington, John was so fast in transition that we always told Brad, you're running to the left, trying to run to the corner opposite of John to give him an outlet. Now, Brad was our best shooter at the time as well, but what that did was, if John was able to get the edge right here, he had a easy bailout pass right here. So what we have here, we keep this guy here. This guy is in what we call the slash position. So the slash position, he reads. The deeper he gets to read. If he sees the back of his man's head right here and he's coming all the way, he can cut this one. If not, when we talk about our drive, pass offense, we hit. All right, so that's a drive. All right, drive into a pass. We should have an open 3 from here. We don't have an open look. This guy should have been filling over. We have a 0.5 second rule. So the ball has to move, whether it be with the pass, with the dribble, or shot. You might have a little bit more time, or with a shot, you got to make a decision in 0.5 seconds. So we're talking about playing with pace. Make a decision in 0.5 seconds. Same thing goes for our guys who penetrate the paint. Okay, if you're a small, you need to get out right away, 0.5 seconds. If we have a big Nas Reed, we have Karl Anthony Towns, we're able to penetrate a little bit. If they penetrate, they have the option to stay down in the dunker. Okay, so that's kind of where we get to our driving kick, and then these guys are just reading, reacting off this. As we go, you got a big in the dunker. There's a baseline drive. Okay, baseline drive right here, whoever it may be. All right, baseline drive. We always tell our guys we got to fill the spot. If you're in the dunker, you got to get to an area where you're able to receive a pass. Him being right there, that's going to allow this guy in the corner, who guys should probably be in the corner, that's going to allow him to have an easy look right here, or you're able to get that drop-off pass right there. You got other guys filled around in those 5 spots.
In your 5-out transition offense, do you always run center through the middle lane, and does that ball has to go on the same side, or it can go to the middle?
Yep, it can go either side. We don't care if the 4-man's up here. We don't care if the 3-man's up here. There's a number of things that we can do out of it. So let's say it is the 5. All right, we're right here. 1 man. If the 5 sees we have a shooter over here, and our guys, we go without. That's one of the reasons we talk a lot about our practices and talking with practicing with music. Okay, we want guys to be able to just to read and react off of kind of what they're doing, what their teammates are doing. If the 5-man starts pinning away for a guy like Malik Beasley, who's a 3-point shooter, he's able to come in. We still are in our 5-out offense. This guy, his responsibility as a 5-man, he just needs to make this guy go over the top of the screen. Once he goes over the top of the screen, he's done what he wants. He's done his job. He's able to get all the way to the rim. He can roll for offensive rebounds. I'll get back to your question in a sec here, but what we have on when we talk about offensive rebounds, that's a big part of what we're talking about, what we do. Okay, so right here, we've actually gone through the numbers. This right here, if a shot is taken from right here, all right, this is a hot spot, and we actually do drills on it when it comes to offensive rebounding. So this is a hot spot right here, and the numbers vary based on who takes it, obviously, based if it's in this area, if he slides up one, or he's right here. But once we hit right here, all right, if the shot's taken, these 2 guys need to get to the hot spot, all right? We're probably going to have other offensive players. You're probably going to have one here if you're in your 5-out. So what we're telling these guys, this guy's getting back, this guy's getting back. He's taking a route right here where he's still in that hot spot area. So as that shot goes up, we have the hot spot right here. Okay, that's part of what we do. That's one of the things. Another thing we do out of our 5-out. When we talk about the big, so let's say we have the 5-man running. We don't care if he runs through the center, all right, and then he funnels out this way. All right, we got offense right here. All right, we don't care if he runs through the center. He tries to post up right here if there's no 45-degree drive. But that's one of the reasons we don't want him always going strong side block. We will tell Cat he can take the strong side block. He's a guy who's a high efficiency post up player. We're able to get to that. But we want to keep this open. This guy does have the option to get out this way. He does have the option to get out and get to the dunker right in here. But for the most part, we're probably going to get him all the way out to the corner and then get into our 5-out offense.
How many families or different family set of plays do you have?
I probably have within our 5-out, we have about 50 different reads, about 7 families out of our 5-out offense. And then as we get to our half court, and I like to save a number of 4th quarter sets for the 4th quarter. But as you get to 4th quarter sets, you probably have about 10 families. And when I say families, how you set up is your family. So if it's a zip, let's say it's a zip, all right? Because like I said, our job is to put these players in the best position to succeed. I'm fortunate to coach a number of very good one-on-one and very good talented players in the NBA. So we just want to get them the ball in their spots where they're comfortable with. So like right here, if we're in a zip alignment, he's out right here. All right, if they're just running down the court, we're in a zip alignment. He's coming up. He can also come into a high pick and roll. He's emptying out. All right, that'd be considered one family. All right, let's say we're in a stack alignment. Okay, so stack right here. Number of teams are starting to run this in the league. You got your stack. All right, he loops out. He's reading. He can also get all the way to the basket. He doesn't have anything. He's getting all the way to to the wing. Easy way for us to get side pick and roll. We're cleared side roll. This guy's shaking up. We're looking 3. So I probably got close to 10 different families. I mean, we have a big playbook, but a lot of them are the same type of concepts.
Do you allow drags, double drags in transition? If so, what triggers?
That's a great question, because that's a ongoing discussion between, I think, a lot of staffs that want to play faster. Because if you're talking about drags, double drags, a lot of times you got to wait for slower bigs to get down the court. What I like more of is a hook type action. So if you have a big who's able to get to the nail, you want guys filling corners. So we always say we have a line in our practice facility right here. Guys have to be staying in this corner. That's just for spacing purposes. So whenever we're working on our quick attack offense, these guys are sprinting the floor, hitting the baseline, all right, and then they're able to come up a little bit. But that just emphasizes where we want them to be. But when I talk about hook, we want the big. He can either kind of loop in here, or he's getting the free throw line. This is a high flat screen. High flat screen. Now you're going to usually have a 4-man who's trailing in right here. Gets you right into your 5-out offense. What this does, when you have a guy like Karl Anthony Towns who can both roll and pop, okay, he's going to kind of delayed roll for offensive rebounds, or he's able to pop right here. What the pop does, if he hits him on the pop, obviously we have that 0.5 second rule. Point guard has to get out. This guy then becomes the slash guy. So anytime he's here, 1 man removed, you need to get a thrust to the basket still with the 5-out offense. 1 man removed right here, though, this guy will take the cut. He's your thrust guy. A lot of times when you have a guy who shoots 40% from 3, like Karl Anthony does, this guy's stunting. That means he can cut the back of his head. We're able to hit this guy right here.
2 questions, Coach. They're done.
You got it.
Where do you clear the dunker spot man to if the baseline penetration is coming from his side?
Great question.
I'm glad you can understand it.
Ball's coming right here. Let's say the dunker, and a lot of times it would happen where the ball came from this area. It was a quick pass this way. Let's say he drives this way. A lot of times we'll just bring this guy up here. We'll bring him up, hit right here. We should be in our 5-out. What that's going to do, now he's able to kind of split the difference right in here. He's able to sit in this pocket. If he drives the baseline, he comes up. This guy's usually going to be the strong side. The guy guarding the big and the dunker, he'll be the guy that is the help guy now. So him being the help guy, he's able to sit in this pocket. Now you have weak side help. A lot of teams, you look at teams like Milwaukee, who heavy, weak, low man help team. This guy's able to get the ball. The guy who was in the dunker, he can either score, chances are it's a smaller guy, or he's able to make that kick out pass. You got the kick out. Let's say a team X is out this way. It's pass, right out. We should have an open 3.
Scenario for you, Coach.
Yep.
You're up 3, right? Up 3 with 10 seconds to go. They're coming down. Maybe there's 5 seconds. Let's go 5. Do you foul?
Hey, so I kid you not. I gotta know the exact details on it. Do we have a timeout? Does the other team have a timeout?
You got 1 timeout left. They're done.
Say the scenario one more time, please.
All right. I'm going to say there's 6 seconds left. You're up 3. They have the ball in the back court. They're dribbling up. Do you foul or not?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do. And actually, D'Angelo Russell literally texted me 2 minutes before the this right here. He was watching some old film, and he was asking a situation on because we're all still learning each other with new players. He was asking a situation. He's like, at what time are we going to foul on here in this situation? So to me, one, that gets me excited as a player who's in quarantine is texting me, asking me foul situations. But 2, it gets me excited, seeing that he's thinking through the game. And the reason you have to practice fouling if you're going to foul up 3. You got to practice fouling, because I've had it be where, and always tell your players if, and you as a coach, stand by that referee. If you're going to foul when you're up 3, tell that referee you're going to foul. And have your players go tell that referee, tell all 3 referees. Because in the NBA especially, whatever call is called on the floor, Like if they call a foul and then they say no, it's no shot, that means that was the call that was made on the floor. If they go look at it, or it's a challenge now, we have the challenge. That means it has to be indisputable evidence. So I'm telling you, have your players, you as a coach, tell them, we had a game last year against Golden State. We had the player foul. He didn't do it properly, but we had our point guard and myself told the referee, hey, we're fouling right away. As soon as this guy gets it, all right, we're fouling. It helped us.
Hey, tell your wife thank you and your son, and have a great time on the walk. And I couldn't imagine. Just thanks for doing this. This was fantastic.
Absolutely. Hey, Tom, I am going to say two more things if you don't mind.
No, you're done. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I got two more things just to kind of leave the group with. It's hey, as basketball coaches, we're afforded and we're given a platform to do good. I think it's really important whenever we have a group of guys all trying to get better right now. Make sure that we're trying to do good for people who need good. That's important, especially during this time. As coaches, stay true to yourself. I just want to leave everybody kind of with this. Stay true to who you are. Stay true to yourself. Remember the quote that Dabo had said, where bloom where you planted. Okay, so let's not be a group of guys that are just hunting for the next job. Let's be a group of guys who are doing what we need to do to help our team in the moment, because everything else takes care of itself. And then I'll tell you, stay ready, because you never know when your time is going to come. Stay ready. Don't work to get ready. And then two more things I always make sure to mention because they're important. Don't miss the moments. And I say that because I tell our staff, we all are a group of workers as coaches. Our staff, they know that if we find out that they miss a dance rehearsal or a soccer game because they were going to watch more film or they were just going to stay in the office, all right, we're not having that. That's not what we're going to be about. Now, obviously, games, practices, team events, those things, sometimes you have to miss that. But if it's something that you can adjust your schedule, don't miss the moments. Because, hey, I say, having a dad, he was there for me. I never felt like he was absent, even though he was coaching the league and gone a lot of times. And then the last thing I'll say is, don't wait for adversity to bring you to your knees. And I say that where, if you don't have a faith, if faith isn't part of your life, it can do great things. And I always want to make sure whenever I get in front of people that I just leave that as a testimony to the fact that God has done great work in my life, and he's done great work in all of our lives.
Well said. Well said. Thanks, friend. Great job.
Tom.
Good luck the rest of the season when it comes back. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Enjoy your family.
Appreciate you all.
Thanks
all right.
again. 30 minutes. Dwayne Casey. Have a great day. See you soon. Thanks, Coach.